Hello, everyone from all of us here at FASEB. I'm France LV Banda, the Diversity, Equity, Accessibility, and Inclusion Program Coordinator. I'm joined today by Dr. Cherie Butts, a medical director at BioGen. She obtained her undergraduate and graduate degrees from the Johns Hopkins University. At BioGen, she's responsible for leading clinical trials to evaluate inflammatory and immunological drug candidates for the treatment of neurodevelopmental disorders, including epilepsy. So I'll allow Dr. Butts to introduce herself a little bit to the audience before we dive into the interview.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. I do have somewhat of a different path as most scientists. I started off as a neuroimmunologist, which means I was trained in neurology or neuroscience, in reproductive biology, and also immunology. And I not only had a chance to learn about different fields, but I also had a chance to work with specimens from both clinical humans as well as animal models.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And so we're here to celebrate National Mentoring Month, and we're going to go dive a little bit into what sort of mentoring means to you and your experiences with it as well, and what you can share with the audience. Mentoring is traditionally viewed as something you only experience as a young trainee. How can or do mentoring relationships evolve as your career matures?
That's a really good question. And in addition to having worked in many different fields, I've actually also worked in different sectors. At each of those stages, I had to say, look, I'm not familiar with conducting science in a different sector. I'm going to need some help with this. I'm not familiar with what is it like to go from being a fundamental biology bench scientist to someone who's now designing clinical trials. I'm going to need some help with this. And so at each step of the way, I had someone to guide me, to help me understand. But then probably the most important elements of my career were things that I did away from the bench and away from the clinic. So I was appointed to many different committees early on in my career. And so I learned about the importance of decision-making and about policies and about how you impact the biomedical research ecosystem, not from doing pipetting or from working in a clinical trial, but because you're at the decision-making table and you're determining what's important for the future.
And given all that you've experienced as a mentee and learning those things about impacting the ecosystem, the biomedical ecosystem, what would you say were the greatest benefits of mentoring others? So moving from mentee to mentor.
Without exaggerating, I've had hundreds of people who have poured into me. And so the responsibility and the expectation is we're going to invest in you, but you are going to invest in others. And so I was always aware of the fact that it is the expectation that I will give back, that I will teach others. Also, what I learned from them. Because we grow up with this version of what is a successful scientist, and it's very narrow. You interact with many people across many different backgrounds. You recognize that how people define success is very different.
There's some pitfalls to avoid in mentoring relationships.
There's this false assumption about what is important to those that you're mentoring. So that is something in terms of setting expectations, you should have that conversation up front and say, look, what is it that you want to do? Because I don't want to assume that you want my exact same path, but I can give you parts of the path that I've been on that are most interesting to you. So that's number one. Number two about setting expectations is if you don't communicate on what it is you offer, then the mentee may have unreasonable expectations. What I will tell all of my mentees is, look, I can offer you advice based on where I've been and what I've done, but I can't offer you those things that I've never done and that I can't speak on, but I can connect you with somebody who probably does know. And that also speaks to the importance of you can't depend on one mentor. You should have many different people because we're all complex and we should keep that information in mind.
What advice would you give to those who are watching who may be interested in a similar career path, who may want that diversity within science?
Yeah, so I think that one of the areas of emphasis that we should be considering is helping people understand how is the biomedical research ecosystem influenced. And many people go into science thinking, okay, I'm going to be at the bench and I'm going to do my best science, and that's how I'm going to make an impact. Then they fail to see that being on a committee, being on a board, working with policies and changing policies, that's really where the ecosystem changes. And something that I try to convey to those that I mentor is, I need you to understand the importance of being a decision maker. You want to make sure that you are not heavily impacted by the policies that are being developed, then you need to be in a position to be either influencing those who are making the decisions or becoming a decision maker yourself.
And at what point in your career did that come to fruition for you? So being a part of these decision-making positions such as boards?
I have to say that I cannot be more grateful for all of those who not only poured into me, but they saw more in me than I was seeing in myself. They said, okay, we know she's never done this, but I think she'd be good at it. And so it's seeing more in the person than the person is seeing, because I didn't know to even ask, oh, would somebody give me a chance to be an FDA reviewer? I didn't even know what that stuff was. And so there were all of these moments where there were other people who said, I think I've seen your skills. No, you have not done this, but I know that your skills can be applied in this setting, and that's going to be important. And as a mentor, that's what I turn around and do. And I think one of the most important things as I've been mentoring, and one of the stories that I often tell is about Stacy Finley, who's an associate professor right now at University of Southern California. And so there was something about Stacy that I said, you know what, I'm gonna take the time and we're gonna work together. And I said, one of the things that happened to me is the aspiration question. I was asked that very, very early in my career. What do you want to be? Where do you want to go? How are you going to make an impact? Those are hard questions. And so I asked her some of the same questions. And I said, okay, if this is what you want to do, here's the road that we're going to go on. And I will tell you, even as an assistant professor, when she first said, I have this idea to create a center, I was like, let's run with it. And she was like, oh, well, I probably have to wait until I'm a full professor. I was like, nope, let's run with it now. Let's see what happens. I said, the worst thing is you'll get some experience. And if you have to wait a little bit longer, then you'll have that under your belt when you do. But guess what? Her institution, she got grant money for it. They were all in. And this idea, and this is also something that I tell my mentees, is a lot of us think that, oh, we can't be this until we get a certain title. If you have influence now, use it. Don't sit on it. Don't wait. We all have a level of institutional credibility and social capital. Please use that now. Don't leave, as I always tell my colleagues, let's not leave any money on the table.
Thank you so much, Dr. Butts. This was a great interview. So happy to speak with you, and so happy to have you as a representative of FASEB's board. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.